get a better understanding of clairvoyance, claircognizance, and the rest of the clairs, as well as get hints on how to use your intuition. Today, we're going to talk about how you can jumpstart your psychic abilities. That starts with defining terms and sharing our personal stories as they relate. Hey, Mystics. If you're new here, I'm Lisa Stewart.
I'm Kai Bertrand.
I'm Susie Parker Goins.
Welcome to the Mystic Mosaic Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to help clarify, illuminate, normalize, and encourage you as you develop your gifts. We are providing information for you to use as a launching point for your own spiritual journey. We are not giving free readings or medical advice. The information provided here is for educational purposes only. Thank you. Let's start the show. Stay with us to the end to see how many intuitive gifts you have. On to the clairs.
Yes.
Oh,
So
all
how does
right.
intuition play out or manifest? How does intuition manifest?
There are several clairs. There are like dozens of clairs, but we should probably just maybe talk about the top five or six.
So the top 5 clairs, I feel like I'm on one of those David Letterman lists.
Number
but,
5.
Yeah.
They call it extrasensory perception for a reason, because we are looking at our regular senses, but using them to experience that intuitive, that energetic realm. So first off, there's clairvoyance. It's to see beyond the physical, and you're seeing things, images and scenes in your mind. And they can include symbols as metaphors for you to interpret. Next up is claircognizance, and that's to know. And you just know something, looking at something and you get this information. It's an intuitive hit that doesn't include any of the other physical senses like seeing, hearing, or feeling. Knowing is tapping into the deep intuition to take it the next right step. Lisa was talking about what's your next right step. So this is some way for you to understand that and look at it a little bit deeper. It is difficult to validate, because the scenario, you don't know if you're right until it happens. I get that all the time. Next up is clairaudience, which is to hear. You hear frequency sounds in the hum of words or phrases, music, animal sounds, or other noise. And when talking to your guides, your guardians, and angels, or anybody outside of your physical, you might hear a real voice that sounds like it's coming from behind you, or mine come over from the right, and it's a quiet voice that sounds like you're talking to yourself inside your head. Except in my case, I'll argue with my guides. So yeah. Next up is clairsentience, and that's to smell. Your nose responds just the same way as if we're smelling smoke in real life or by a visitor. I actually had a guide that showed up as, what was it, gin and cigar smoke. I didn't like it. I asked him to change. Clairgustance is to taste, and that's, it manifests the same way as smelling. And Lisa's got a story about that one. And then being empathic is when you are out and about and you can feel other people's energy around you and you can take on their stuff. Being an empath, again, a whole nother episode. I think there's one, clairsalience. There's also clairsentience, which
Yes.
is one that I experience working with clients, is that I'll do a body scan and then I'll go, oh, you've got something in your kidney here. Now, the way I work it, that gives me a tip about what I'm feeling from them, but your body can feel all sorts of things, whether it's, your body holds emotions, your body holds on to trauma. And so frequently when you have chronic pain, you talk to it and find out, what is this from? Is that mine? Is that somebody else's? Is this a trauma? Is this a past life thing? So your body really does know, and it keeps the score. So
yeah. Susie,
so
I just want to,
Lisa, I'm curious to know about your story, or where you want to go with this.
Yeah, I think that to go back and talk about the clairsentience, I think that not only do you feel that internally, but you also feel that externally as well, right?
Yeah.
For me,
Right.
it can be vibrations, it can be goosebumps, or just like overall prickly feeling, on the body that I might start to experience maybe talking with my guides and ancestors when I'm calling them in. Suddenly I feel the backside of me just, it's like my feet and legs are falling asleep. It's very cool. And then
I will
also
direct clients. I will direct clients' guides to touch them in a place agreed upon. It's by
mhm,
consent. So, you
yeah.
may get a grandmother touching your shoulder or something like that. But yeah, that's
Mhm.
definitely right. It can just be on superficial on the body. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, getting pokes, and my spirit kitty Chardonnay will rub up against my leg sometimes, tap me on the hand, or all kinds of different things. Kai?
No, I was gonna say that the thing about the clairs is that you might get one or all or whatever, and you can actually choose the ones you want. So like for me, again, not a hugger, don't really like clairsentience. So I've actually shut that off
Ooh,
because I don't like it.
okay.
I know a lot of people who get, I mean, like that doesn't mean to say like occasionally I won't get the shivers or whatever, like external stuff I'm fine with, but like, yeah, I don't like if someone's got back pain, I don't want their back pain. I
Mhm.
don't want to feel that.
Yeah,
So, for me, I've actually shut that off
yeah.
because I don't like the sensation of it. And I can actually, when I'm working on somebody as in for a client, I can actually find, that it shows up as an energy event for me without me actually having to feel it in my own body. So yeah. So if there's if the clairs you don't like, you don't want to smell stuff,
Mhm.
you can be no thank you. So you can develop the ones that work for you and you can just toss away the ones that don't.
Yeah.
That's
The
a really
clairsentience, I definitely clear those because who wants to walk around with kidney problems? Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
and
and
I'm just like, nope, no
yeah,
thank you.
yeah, and I think that really gets more into than the empathic abilities. But I'm with you, Claire. I mean, I don't want with you, Kai. I don't want to feel somebody else's back pain or liver problems or anything else like that. I did not know you could shut them off. I thought
Yeah.
this is the newbie coming in. I thought that a we wanted to be able to tap into all of our clairs, so that way when we feel them simultaneously, they really help to inform the story if we're talking to a client or we're walking into a new environment and we need to understand what the experience is going to be. But for me, I want to see more. I don't see, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see enough. And I got all kinds of feels. And it's not that I necessarily want to turn them off, but I really want to turn on the viewing aspect of it. And I'm really, I don't want to say struggle because then I will forever be struggling. So that's not a good manifestation, but I'm striving to hear more. So
Yeah, see,
those are the two.
for me, I've always been visual. Like I could see things forever, right? So that's like my primary. And then I can, as time has gone on, I mean, I've started to hear things. I mean, I've been hearing my guide since I was a kid. And other things have come into play, the claircognizance, the clairsalience. Yeah, sometimes the smell thing is good for me, other times not so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's one of that's like, yeah, that's an iffy one. But yeah, but when you start this whole thing and you're trying to figure out like what clairs you have, because I mean, some people are like, I just have this one clair, that's all I got. And I'm like, that's because that's where you are right now. That doesn't mean the others won't develop.
Right.
So if someone starts off as clairsentient, like just use it, work it until the others develop.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point you decide you don't want to do that anymore, like it doesn't work for you. I mean, for some people, they like that. They want that. They want that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can pick and choose whichever ones you want. Like I said, my preference is I don't like the clairsentience, but I have a friend who's like, she doesn't do anything without it because for her, that's how she knows exactly where she needs to work. But I don't need that. So it just depends. It's a personality thing and depends on how you work. But I would say like, don't like allow your gifts to develop to the point, whatever point they're going to. And then as you continue to practice, you'll figure out which ones are more prevalent, which the ones you tend to use more. And then the ones you don't need, you just won't use as much. So
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the foundation of developing a trust in what your intuition is giving you. It can show up in any of those ways. And then you get to sort out what works and what doesn't. So yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
There was a point when I was participating in it was a guided meditation to talk to my guide. And suddenly, and my guide and I had been meeting at, my favorite tree quite often. And suddenly I got bombarded with all this smoke and it just filled my olfactory and I started choking and coughing. And I'm like, this has never happened before when I talked to my guide. And so it made me wonder if at that point I was opening myself up to other beings that are probably hanging out in the room because now I'm a beacon and they're like, hey, since you're opening up, let me tell you that I'm here and I'm going to just fill your nose with smoke so that you know I'm here because this is what you do. And so that was really confusing for me. I really never figured it out, but I'm like, is this the same experience? Or are these two separate experiences that I'm happening simultaneously?
Yeah, well, that's the thing about when you get into the metaphysical, it's like things are not gonna be the same, like
Mhm.
ever. Like, you can do the same thing over and over, and it's never going to be the same, even if the same people are there, same circumstances, same intention. You never know what it's going to be, so you kind of got to be prepared for just about anything, because
Yeah.
when it comes to the metaphysical, it could change in a heartbeat because it's all energy and it's flexible.
Yeah.
And it fluctuates.
Yeah.
So
But and I think that in the beginning stages, it's also about discernment, and that was just something that I couldn't discern between the two. Were they, two items coming together to inform a story, or were they two separate stories happening at the same time? So
yeah, when I was doing stuff like that, well, I still do stuff like that. Like I'm walk over into the other side, and something's happening, and I'm like, okay, what is this now? And it's not. I don't think of it as, okay, I'm going to take the time to kind of process this in my head and try to think about it. It's like, okay, what's happening? Like, just deal with the situation, and then it's kind of like, everything's kind of like an emergency situation. Just deal with whatever's happening in front of you, and then think about it later, kind of stuff. I mean, that's how a lot of this stuff works, because even as a healer, someone comes up to you, even if you've had like worked on this same person before like a million times, they could walk up to you this time and it'd be completely different from the last time you spoke to them. It's like, oh my gosh,
right.
what happened?
Right.
And you never know. So you have to kind of put yourself in a space that it's like, whatever it is, I will be able to take care of it, and or not, but I will know. And that's the level of discernment that you have at that moment, and then you can process the heck out of it later on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. The story I wanted to talk about just really briefly is about Clairgustance. And Clairsalience is to smell and Clairgustance is to taste. Sometimes, once in a while, I might taste rust or I might taste something else. I'm like, that's weird. Okay. And trying to be cognizant of what's going on around me if there's any other messages that are coming in. But this, I think, speaks to Clairgustance, but not through a messaging kind of tool. Andrew and I were having dinner together. We always have dinner together, but we were having dinner one evening, and he is usually the one who cooks and he plates. And so, of course, we're lazy. We sit in front of the television. So he plates red sauce and chicken in a bowl. And I was trying to stay away from cheese. And, cheese would be great on the red sauce dish. But I'm like, nope, no cheese for me. So I grab my tray, I walk over to the couch, I sit down, he's over to my left. I'm not paying attention to what he's doing. I don't micromanage his meal. I'm just sitting there, filling my pie hole. Suddenly I'm like, God, goat cheese would be really good on this. And I look over and there he is, filling his pie hole with amount of goat cheese on red sauce. And I'm like, when did you get goat cheese? And I'm like, that was fascinating. That I was just like over the moon. I'm like, oh my God, I can taste what you're eating right now. I wanted to share that. Thought that was fun.
Pretty cool. So my story about clairsalience, to smell, is about when I first learned Reiki. I was actually taking Reiki 1 and 2 over a weekend. And by the end of it, I had so much energy pumped through me. I could not have told you my name because I was so out of it. And at the end of it, there was an energy share, which, you know, it's a Reiki share, but anybody who had any kind of energy modality could show up. So I was working on this guy who was on a table, didn't know him, never saw him before. And, you know, my teacher was like, here's an opportunity to learn, to use what you've just learned. I'm like, fantastic. So I started working on him, sending him Reiki energy, and I kept smelling French fries. I didn't think anything of it because I'm like, you know, maybe the guy had French fries for lunch, right? Didn't think anything of it. So I worked on him, and then I, you know, after everything was done, I went home and I'm talking to my friend on the phone, and I kept smelling French fries. We didn't have French fries in the house. Nobody was eating French fries. I'm thinking, why do I keep smelling French fries? Like, what's going on? Didn't think anything of it. The next day I woke up, I was really sick, like really sick. I couldn't get out of bed. I had to call out to work that day. I couldn't get out of bed. It was horrible. I called my teacher and I said, what the heck is going on? And she's like, not sure. Come in. And so I went to see her, and it turned out that the person that I was working on, turned out that he had a full body medical issue. And when I worked on him, apparently his energy system really liked my energy. So it attached a cord to me and was literally sucking out my energy to help him. So she disconnected the cord from me, and I felt better immediately. So yeah, so that's my thing. So it always reminds me, every time I smell French fries, I'm always like,
where's the cord?
Yeah, I was like, where is it? I was like, is there actually French fries in this room? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that actually started me yakking about shields and working on shields and thinking about shields because of that.
Let's talk about empaths and the common symptoms of an empath. So feeling the feelings of others, wanting to cry for no reason, getting angry for no reason, catching the thoughts of others. I've done that a few times, clear as daylight. I'll tell you about that once. Absorbing the feelings and recognizing when the anger isn't mine, feeling bombarded and overwhelmed in crowded places. I have another story about that. And then here's something that I didn't realize. For several years, it was like, oh, we're all empaths. Are you an empath? I'm an empath. Oh, it's so wonderful to be in this club of empaths. But what I didn't realize is that being an empath isn't a badge of honor. It's really a matter of not creating boundaries and shields for yourself, because you don't have to take on the energy of others. And as a matter of fact, Kai and Susie, you'll both tell me you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I've encountered some people who just love being an empath and they'll take it on. So, you know, that makes me wonder, are you some kind of an energy vampire because they don't want to stop? But it's not always a healthy thing for a person to take on other people's energies. No, let me rephrase that. It is not a good thing. I, I was using my claircognizance to know that Kai's over there going, nope, nope, nope. But no, I have encountered people who's like, I don't want to shut it off. And it's like, okay, why? Why not? So learning to discern other people's energy, road rage. That's a bunch of empaths out there on the road, and you're taking it on. And it's like, nope, and you know, shielding, I know, is the next episode. So y'all come and listen to that because you cannot use enough shielding some days. On the road, it's there. I'll look over and I'll see everybody's angels over their car going, hey, how you doing? But taking on other people's, you can get it's called clair empathy is what it is, the general term for it. But you can take on the energy of a place or a thing, and that's just so many other things, psychic imprints from places that have experienced tremendous trauma. But yeah, it doesn't mean one doesn't care. It just means one is protective of their own energy, and it's better used to help oneself than it is it's also diverting. If you're taking on other people's energy and taking on their emotions, you're not dealing with your own.
Mm,
So it's not a good thing.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And the other
Being
thing
mindful.
about, oh, sorry.
No, just
What I
being
was,
mindful.
yeah, I was just gonna say that the, when you're an empath, it's like once you have your shields up and you have control of your own energy, then you can open up things, open up your empath abilities when you want to.
Mhm.
So for instance, like if you have an animal that is not feeling well and you kind of can't figure out what's going on with them, then you can actually open up your empathetic abilities and be like, okay, let's see if I can actually see. That's an instance where I will open up my clairsentience and I'll be like, okay, where, like, just take on that energy from that animal and be like, okay, where do you hurt? Like, okay, my leg hurts. Okay, got it. What is that about? So then that's how you can consciously use your abilities to do things. And the same thing is true, like if you have like a young child, kids screaming their head off, and they're not going to be able to tell you, like, that man over there scared me because he said something to me, like that's when your empathetic abilities can open up and you can be like, okay, what is this feeling? What is it from? Where did it get directed to? You can actually pick up all that in the energy itself without actually having to speak to the child. And the same thing is true for someone who's experienced any kind of a trauma or something like that. Like if they can't talk, or if they, or if they don't want to talk, just reading their energy, just getting, gives you so much information as an empath. But again, it's consciously like opening that up or closing it down. And most empaths who don't realize they're empaths are constantly bombarded. They're getting headaches. They never want to leave their house. They don't want to be around people because it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to thank you, Kai, for your shielding course, because after taking it, and then I'm like, I know. And she's like, let's go shopping. You two know how much I love going shopping. I'm like, all right, going back to IKEA. And I'm like, all right, well, if you like to drive, then I'm going to shield up and like really put on the heavy duty shields. And so we're driving, I'm shielding, we walk into IKEA. And if anybody has ever walked into an IKEA, and I think we all have, you get bombarded, everybody, you've got the energy of the families and the child who has to go to the bathroom, and the husband who doesn't want to be there, and we're spending too much money, and all of those disparate thoughts and anxieties that are happening in that space. I really resist going. I put up my shields, I walk through, and about the first 10 minutes I'm like, oh my God, this feels really good. I don't feel anybody. I was amazed. I was absolutely stunned how wonderful that was. So thank you.
I do that when I go into Costco. I've never been to IKEA. I know I'm not a native. Oh, well, fine. But I'll do that
They're
at
all over
Costco
now.
because there's that buy. But also, Kai's talking about checking in with energy, checking in with other people. And I noticed that the people you were speaking, or that the beings you were speaking specifically of, are ones who cannot communicate with you. There are some empaths who will be invasive. I've experienced that. There was some drama going on in my metaphysical circle, and um, I was talking with somebody who I was trying to be an adult and talk to them nicely, and then I felt somebody else's energy coming in, and I finally turned to this person. I said, "Stop it. I can feel what you're doing, and it's invasive." And that was a lesson for them. So even though you're an empath and you can feel other people's stuff, I don't think it is ethical to walk in and just go out and feel out other people's energy when they have the ability to give consent or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's I checked in with a niece. She was a baby and she had asthma, and I offered up. It's like, hey, I talked to her higher self because she was, still in arms. I said, "Can I help you with this?" And she went, "No, this is a lesson for my parents." Like, okay. So when you get no, consent is still consent, no matter what realm you're working in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, people invading other people's energy is not good. And yeah, I have a story about that too. Um, there was a a group that were helping seniors in a senior center. And my friends had gone, and I was actually working full time. So, I couldn't go. It was like during the day. And they called me and they said, there's this one healer that's, she's actually, instead of sending energy to the seniors that were coming for energy work, she was actually taking it from them. And then on top of that, what she would do with every healer that she didn't know that walked in the room, she would actually like scan their energy without speaking to them, just scan their energy. And so what I did is I actually put up a shield with the intention that if anybody scans me without my permission, that it throws that energy back at them times 10. So if nobody scanned me, there would be no issue, right? And so as soon as I walked in the door, I felt the ping on my shield. And yeah, it blew back at her and she walked away from me like so fast. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah.
My friends were standing next to me. They felt it too. They were laughing. They were like, yeah, we knew you were going to do something that would teach her a lesson. I'm like, hey man, it's like, it was harmless. It was a trap that was set. If she didn't trip it, it'd have been fine. So she came after me. I didn't attack her.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
some folks
we'll
aren't
do
that
that.
subtle. Some folks are not that subtle. There's a practitioner we've talked about who will say, I just can't wait to get your energy. And, my shield should have been up before I walked in, but it's like, pshoo. So
I've
got
heard
other
that.
ideas in place for that.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard that, and I think that it's imperative that each of us, not just the three of us sitting here, because you two have already got your shtick down. You know what to look for, you know what to sense. I'm still learning, and then all of my other friends who are awakening and walking into Zooms and things like that. There are people in there who will go, "Oh, I just can't wait. I love it when you show up." And I'm like, "No, that's inappropriate. Center yourself, put your own shields up, be in your own power, generate your own power. Do not siphon, do not suck, do not otherwise pull energy from anybody else. That's incredibly unethical."
Yeah, it's like energy vampire, anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that one day because there's like so many ways to be an energy vampire. So,
Like, don't be that guy.
or girl or person, just don't be that way.
I was not an energy vampire. Be like Kai.
Who blasts people when you touch me?
Experiencing the clairs. I know that we talked about how we can experiencing the clairs all at one time or singular, like a musical instrument. Sometimes it's like an orchestra. You can hear and you can sense, you can feel, you can just know. For me, I think that when I was starting, I was definitely claircognizant, right? I just knew to turn left, not right. And I think that maybe I would be interested if anybody in the comments wants to share what they know as their first clair. Because for me, if it's claircognizant, is it the matter of my angels and guides directing me, almost like a meat puppet, hands on shoulders going, nope, go this way, without actually scaring me with a voice in my ear going, ah, who's talking to me? Because then, of course, I get all spastic, and nobody wants that. So I wonder if being claircognizant was my first. I also was clairvoyant to be able to see images, but to have that before the voice comes in and says, take a left, Lisa, take a left. So there's that. And then also discounting your feelings. Please don't do that. Don't gaslight yourself and overlook the instantaneous reply. Don't question that instantaneous reply as well.
Yeah, overthinking is really easy to do. And yeah, you don't want to discount it because that's how you develop the trust in what your intuition is. What is it? Some people talk about journaling, write down your hits, if you will, and see how they play out. Paying attention to dreams is a great way to establish. I don't know what clair that would be, but looking at your dream time work too.
Yeah.
Finding those things to support it. Yeah.
Let's talk about resonating.
Okay, so all over body chills. This could be an indication of several things. It could be that something rings true. it's something positive or something negative. Intuition will actually tell you which it is. I mean, because you can get the thing where you go into a haunted house and all of a sudden you're like freezing. It's like, oh, that's not good. Although sometimes you might get like, an angel passes by and you'll get a shiver and be like, ooh, that actually feels pretty good. So, but intuition will help you with that. And it can be complicated because unless you have a very high energy sensitivity, sometimes it doesn't feel like anything. Like you can't tell. It's just like you get like a little shiver and you're like, well, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. Resonance is kind of like, we talked about this at another time, that it's kind of like having two guitars in the same room, that it vibrates at the same frequency. So you hit a note on one guitar and the other one will resonate at the same note or whatever, the same frequency, because it's that's that resonance thing that happens. And so that's what happens with us. So for instance, and that goes back to like, if you're an empath and you like somebody's angry, all of a sudden you feel angry because you're resonating at that same level that they are, which is why you use shields, so you don't do that.
Right. Yeah, I love the guitar resonance. They did a study on that actually, and I thought that was a fascinating tool to use as a metaphor for how we work as mediums and channelers. Susie?
Yeah, and there's something we call goosebumps when you get truth bumps. So, I'll be talking to somebody and we both go, "Ooh, that was so cool." And so those truth bumps. So yeah, it does manifest physically when things are resonating. It's very cool.
Yeah, and I think going back to the truth bumps, Susie, when I first decided, okay, I'm doing this now, Andrew and I were driving back from one of the bookstores, and I had my first pack of tarot cards in my lap, and I said, okay, I guess I'm doing this. And then boom, full body chills. And I'm like, okay, I think something's happening and the universe is saying, yeah, this is what you want to do. Still not believing in not learning about, I hadn't learned about spirit guides, and I certainly wasn't into angels, and still recognizing them as being viable beings. So yeah, I think they're like, yeah, you're in this, girl. All right. Well,
Okay.
Mystics, if you would like the show notes to this episode, head to our website at mysticmosaic.com, where you can learn more about us. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as hit that button for notifications, because sometimes we might go live. Make sure that you stay grounded, stay shielded, and stay magical.